Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I wanted to do a video for you guys that shows you a little bit of doing right angle weave with gemstones. So we're going to be doing right angle weave and a multi-row right angle weave, and then we're going to kind of be seaming together and seaming down the line. I'm going to be using two different types of gemstones for this, giving a nice natural look with a Bronzite 4mm and then the matte brown Amazonite in the 4mm as well, which has kind of a nice earthy summer tone to it. The whole thing is going to be held together with some 15-0 seed beads in the galvanized gold color. It would look nice with the champagne or the Duracoat galvanized gold as well. If you need any of these materials, below the video there's a little date stamp that says when the video was created. You can check on that, and the little show more button there will give you links to these different products. Or you can go in the right hand corner here, the little eye, and click on that, and it'll give you links to these as well. So again, we're going to be doing this right angle weave, and I'm calling this the Dorado bracelet, or the Dorado necklace. We're going to be doing a Bronzite 4mm round, and we're going to be doing Amazonite 4mm round. We're going to be alternating between the two as we create our design. Again, we're going to be spacing out with some 15-0 beads. Then we're going to string the whole thing on some 2mm leather cording, just with some slip knots in the back. In addition to my beads and my leather, I'm also going to be using a size 12 beading needle and some 0.006 wildfire beading thread. I'm using the green color because it'll match really nicely, and you won't be able to see it underneath the different seed beads and between the beads that I'm using. Whenever I'm using wildfire thread, I like to have a thread zap or a cord cutter handy. This is the thread zap 2 that I'll be using. Also, because I use the zap, I like to have a pair of needle nose pliers or bent needle nose or flat nose pliers in order to flatten out the thread after I use the thread burner to make it easier to thread on that nice size 12 needle. I would suggest you use a 12 because we are going to be going back through our 15-0 seed beads multiple amounts of times. I also forgot to mention that these are the Miyuki brand 15-0 seed beads. In addition to all of these, you want a nice workable surface to work on to make you more efficient and to pick up easier. We are going to be learning and doing right angle weave. You can do the same pattern with a crawl pattern or a cubic right angle weave. I'm going to show it straight, and then we're going to be seaming the two sides up together, which is going to make it a little bit easier because some of you guys have trouble with that crawl stitch. So to get started, I want about 5 feet of beading thread. We're going to make a nice 5-inch section to hang on our leather. This is just a little sampling for you guys. We're going to make a nice long 5-inch section to hang so you want about 5 feet of thread. Little piles of both of your 4mm rounds and some seed beads, and we'll get ready to learn our multi-row right angle weave for this nice Dorado necklace. So to get started, we're going to have your thread and needle with about 5 feet. At the very end of the thread, I'm putting a stop bead. A stop bead, if you're unfamiliar with beading, is going to be a bead that eventually will come off the project, and I usually use a bead that's not going to be in the project so I don't confuse it, especially with this right angle stitch, which can be a little bit confusing for some people. If you are confused with this right angle stitch, you do want to keep in mind that there is a video to learn right angle weave that we have before jumping into learning something with an off count like this. So in my example piece here, I have 3 different colors of stones. I'm deciding I'm just going to use 2 for this example as I continue to kind of make a 5-inch piece, like I said. So I'm going to take a bunch of my stones off, and we're going to also take our seed beads and make a nice little pile of seed beads on your beadboard. All right, so I have my stop bead on, and what I'm going to be doing, like I said, is kind of teaching you right angle weave. We're going to be doing right angle weave that on the sides of the right angle weave, or the sides of our box, are going to be 3 15-0 seed beads. On the top and bottom of the box are going to be our gemstones. To start, we're going to be starting with our Bronzite. So we're going to do a whole long 5-inch piece of Bronzite, and then we're going to come back and do a second row where we add a row of the brown Amazonite. So you can kind of push your brown Amazonite off to the back right now, and we're going to focus on that Bronzite. To get started, we are going to add 3 of our 15-0s onto the needle, then 1 Bronzite, then 3 15-0s, and then another Bronzite. Like I said, we're going to make a box with this. We're going to be doing the right angle weave, and we're going to basically make this into a rounded circle. To do so, we're going to sew back through the 3 15-0s that we just added, as well as the first of our Bronzite gemstones. This is going to pull our design into kind of a nice little rectangle, really. From here, we're going to add 3 more seed beads and 1 more Bronzite bead and 3 more seed beads. Or tiger's eye rather than Bronzite, sorry about that. So we have our tiger's eye bead and we have our seed beads on either side. We're going to make our next little section of our box here with our seed beads at our top and our bottom and our gemstones on our sides. We already have one side of our box, and now we're going to complete it by adding the bottom of the box, the side of the box, and the top of the box. Adding those gemstones in a rounded section, sewing through the last of the tiger's eye bead that we added. From there, you're going to sew through the 15-0s on the bottom, and then the gemstone, that tiger eye, on the right-hand side of the box. From here, we're going to continue with this same stitch, adding 3 more seed beads, then a Bronzite, or I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep wanting to say Bronzite, tiger's eye, and then 3 more seed beads. So each time when we get ready for the stitch to add another bead on, we're using 3 seed beads on either side. You're going to sew through the tiger eye bead, going through the bottom of it when the thread is coming out the top. You're always going into the hole opposite of where the thread is exiting. From there then, we're going to sew through the top beads and down the side of the tiger's eye bead. I like to, in my hand, simply flip it over, so that way I'm sewing away from myself rather than towards myself, going through the seed beads and then exiting the last tiger eye bead. When you exit the last tiger's eye bead, you want to give a nice tight pull so you don't see as much thread between the beads. Continuing on again, 3 seed beads, 1 tiger eye, and 3 seed beads. From here, we're going into the tiger eye bead that we added on the last row, going from the opposite direction. So our thread is coming out the top there because I flipped it. And we're going to enter the bottom and come out the top. That's going to round those beads out. I flip it in my hand just to make it easier for me to sew away from me. Sew through the 3 15-0 seed beads on the side. And then we're going to sew through the tiger eye bead and out. So we're going to keep doing this. If you don't flip the project, you will have that every other stitch, the thread will be at the bottom and then the top, bottom, top. If you're flipping it in your hand like I do, the thread will always be exiting that top for you. So then you do your 3 beads on, your gemstone, 3 beads on. So back through the gemstone in that rounded fashion. I flip it in my hand, sew through that baseline of my 3 seed beads and out through the gemstone. If you draw it out on a piece of paper, right angle weave is a series of figure 8s. I'm going to continue this till I have 5 inches of this baseline of my right angle weave. Now that I have my 5 inches of my beads here, I'm going to go in and get ready to actually add my second row. So I'm coming out the top of the gemstone and I have my Amazonite here ready to add and my 15-0s off to the side. And I'm going to add my second row of gemstones. So this is the same way that you would add any sort of second row to a right angle weave. I'm going to be adding my next box of beads, which is going to put my Amazonite beads kind of right below the ones that are existing for the tiger eye row. To add the beads, I'm going to sew down the row of 15s next to where my needle is coming out of. From there, I'm going to add 1 of my gemstones 3 seed beads, and another gemstone. From here, I'm going to add on to this row of 3 by sewing in a rounded form through the 15 O's. So just like we've been doing with the gemstones, sewing around in a circle, we're going to be sewing around the 15 O's. From here, I'm going to sew through the first gemstone that I added and out. Now with every row additional that I add, I'm going to be adding 15 O's and 1 gemstone. So to add my 15 O's, I'm coming out 1 gemstone here. To get my next gemstone to sit correctly, I need 3 15 O's to link them and then a gemstone. So I have my 3 15s that I put on. Then I put on another one of my gemstones. Again, we've switched to the Amazonite. And then I'm going to sew up through the 3 15s next to my tiger eye bead. And that's going to bring my other 2 sides of my box in together. From here, I need to get over to create and to add my 4th bead in line. To do so, you're going to circle around, I call it, going through that gemstone, so that you're just retracing your thread steps, always in a circle, going through the 3 15s and through the gemstone. When you come out here, you're coming out that you're starting your next box. I have one side and my top of my box. I'm going to sew through the top of the box. Now I'm going to add the left side of the box, which is going to be a gemstone, and I'm going to add 3 seed beads for the bottom of the box. So again, I'm always adding a gemstone and 3 seed beads. We're then going to sew to make the box complete through the right side of the box, which is going to round the box out. From there, I need to add on. I want to get my next row, so I'm going to sew through the top of the box and then through the gemstone that was the left side of the box. The left side of that box now becomes the right side of the next box. On go 3 15s for the bottom of the box and a new gemstone for the left of the box. I'm going to sew through the top of the box, which are those seed beads, and that's going to bring that next box or that next right angle weave unit into play. From there, I need to get down so I can add the left side and the bottom of the next box by sewing through in a rounded fashion through the gemstone that was already there and through the seed beads and through the gemstone. As I do that now, I'm ready to add on to my box. I'm going to need to sew through the top of the box, add my left hand side of the box, add the floor or the bottom, and go through the right bead, which is going to create the right side. So you can see you're going to continue with that right angle stitch, adding in your next row of your gemstones, continuing down that same 5-inch path and adding on all of the brown Amazonite beads. As you come to the last row of your second right angle weave row with the rest of the Amazonite, we're going to go back and add a 3rd row in with your tiger eye again. So you're going to get your tiger's eye beads and you're going to get them out. And just like we did before, you're going to add your next row. To add your next row, we're going to start with a gemstone, 3 seed beads, and then a gemstone. From here, we're going to go back through the 3 seed beads along this side here, which are going to become the top. And then we're going to go back through the tiger eye gemstone, through the bottom, and then continue on with our right angle weave. So you're going to continue on adding in your gemstones. One thing, if you notice that you have any thread, then going in between the seed beads and the gemstone there, going right along the edge, you're probably kind of doing a cheat to your right angle weave. So go back and you want to make sure you just kind of have those V sections between your gemstones and your seed beads. Also from now on, as I add the third row here, we're always going to be adding a gemstone and 3 seed beads. It's going to alternate for your right angle weave which goes on first. This pass I have a gemstone and the 3 seed beads that go on. The next pass I'll have the 3 seed beads and then the gemstone. So you'll switch the orders always as you're continuing to add and growing along your right angle weave. So go ahead here, add in your 3rd stitch row with your tiger eye beads, and then I'll show you how we're going to add our 4th row, which is going to bring the whole piece into that rounded circle for us to put the leather through. As you finish the 3rd row here, you are going to be starting the 4th row. The 4th row, we're actually not going to be adding any seed beads. We're going to be adding a lot of our Amazonite beads because we're going to do a 4th row that matches the 2nd row, mimicking kind of doing the every other pattern. To do so, like I said, we're not adding any seed beads because we already have our floor and our ceiling of our right angle weave as we bring this together. What we're going to be adding is our left and our right beads, which are going to be our Amazonite. So as you're coming out the end of your bracelet, you're going to go through the first 3 seed beads. And I said bracelet just because it reminds me of a bracelet. And you're going to kind of be pinching the project as you do it. We're going to add our 1 bead that's going to sit on the right. And you're going to continue circling in your right angle weave fashion. If this really does confuse you and you're watching and you say, oh, I can't follow this right angle weave, please watch the right angle weave video first. As you're adding then your 2nd bead, which would be your left, and you're going to circle around again. From now on, we're going to be just adding our right hand wall to our little square. So we're going to be adding the right side of the square. We're going to go back through the right bead, which is now going to become the left, through the 3 seed beads along the floor of the box. And then after exiting those 3 seed beads, we're going to add our new right bead. I'm going to untwist this here. Now we're going to add our new right bead. So again, you're just kind of pinching. That's the easiest way to kind of tackle this, is that you're pinching, adding your right bead, and then circling through, either going through the floor or the ceiling of your next bead here. You're going to circle around then in order to get a new right hand bead on. So you're constantly adding and circling around that grouping of your 3 seed beads and your gemstone that you just added. As you're working, your thread is going to constantly be coming out the top and the bottom opposite ends when you add your new right bead in place. So here I'm coming out the top. On the next one, I'll be coming out the bottom as I circle around and add them into place. So you're just circling around doing that right angle weave, going through here, circling around the seed beads. And you're going to see a little bit of thread exposed. That thread that's exposed, we're going to cover up as we kind of come back down the project and create our lines. So I'm coming down the gemstone now, and I'm going to go through my base 3 seed beads. And then, like I said, the last one, we came down as we added the gemstone. This one, we're going to go up as we add the gemstone in. Pick up the gemstone, and then we go up to our 3 beads. If this does really confuse you, you can always go in and do this with 2 needles, going through and crisscrossing as you go up. And that can be a less kind of scary way for a lot of people to do right angle weave, is to do the whole thing with 2 needles. So if you do have a little bit of kind of that right angle weave scare, don't worry. Start the project with 2 needles. And you can do the whole project with 2 needles, and that way it doesn't confuse you. As we sew up, I'm 5 beads in, and I just want to show you that tubular shape that you're getting. So you're connecting those rows and going from a nice flat, almost bracelet-like piece to that connection. You're going to continue up the whole rest of our 5-inch piece here, adding in our Amazonite beads, and then we'll come back and kind of finish up our sides by adding in some extra little seed beads at each little break. So at this point here, I'm finished with my right angle weave. I just have one more bead basically to add that I kept here so that way you guys could see how we're going to go in and finish it off. So I have one more bead that I'm going to be adding on, adding in the 4mm, kind of pushing that tail out of the way and going back through the seed beads. Once you're at this point, you can be finished if you like and keep kind of that nice open look. And all you would do is get back to that finishing point here with the 8-0 that we used as a stop bead by going through the seed beads in that same right angle fashion, tying the knot off and burning them off. What I'm going to do is make it look a little bit more finished at the end, and we are going to add a 15-0 seed bead between each of our rows. So I'm stringing through my next 4mm bead here, adding a 15, stringing through my next 4mm. So these are the four beads at the very end here. I'm just kind of closing up my little right angle weave, sewing through, adding in one of those 4s between each row. What that does is just kind of makes a nice finished edge to the design here. You can see that it keeps it nice and then closed up. From there, you have to decide what you want to do. Do you want to keep it like this and you want to be finished with it, or, which is going to kind of give that opening look, or do you want to kind of close off and make the rows closed? What we're going to do is we are going to close off the rows. To do so, we're going to go down each line of our 3 beads, exit the 3 beads, add a new 15, and go down the next 3. We're going to do this along all the floor and ceiling of our right angle weave, making a nice gold line rather than kind of that boxy look that we have. Again, either one is correct. You can stop at any time. This is going to make it just a tiny bit stiffer as you go in and add that extra bead. So I'm going to go in, add that extra 15-0 along each row. If you want to, there's even enough space that you can put an 11-0. I toyed with the idea of putting an 11-0 in there as well in a silver color, but decided to keep it all the nice 15-0 gold. So I'm going to go in here, continue down. When you get to the end of the row, adding in that consistent gold, all you're going to do is circle around the 4mm beads here at the end as well, adding in those 15-0s, and then come down your next row. So coming at the end of this first row here, I'm at the opposite end, and all I'm going to do is, like I did in the first row, adding a 15 around between each of my gemstones. Just adding a 15, sewing through the next gemstone in that last line of 4. When I get back to my starting line here, I'm going to go past and back through the first gemstone and seed bead that I entered, and then we're going to go down our next row. So you can see the seed beads in there, and I'm just going to continue around. As I get to each side then, I'll just kind of reinforce that last little piece by going through and circling around in order to get to another row. And then again, just come down the row nice and easy, adding in a 15-0 seed bead between each of your groupings of 3. So the last thing I'm going to do as I'm finishing up here is we are going to tie off our starting thread. So I have my last bead that I'm going to put into place, adding in my seed bead, and then sewing up, which is going to bring my needle out right next to the stop bead. We're simply going to take our needle off our project, take our stop bead off, and the cool thing with this is we're just going to tie our threads together. After tying the threads together, we are going to grab our thread zap or our thread burner and burn down any connection points that you may have had to add thread. If you did have to add thread and you are wondering how to do that, we have a video too that you can search on the page There's a little magnifying glass right at the starting page that you can search by a specific page, and you can look for how to add thread on there. Burning down then, I'm just going to burn down each individual piece with my threads up or my thread burner. If you don't have a thread burner, I would highly suggest getting one. I kind of can't imagine living without mine now. Going back and adding in my thread. And there you have it then. So you have your little kind of slinky piece. If you would want to do it as a bangle bracelet, and rather than doing it as this Dorado necklace, you can, in order to keep it more flexible, do not add the seed beads in place. You can also kind of force a little bit of a turn by every once in a while jumping the line in seed beads to make it look like it has a little bit of a turn on it. You can also kind of create that turn as we go ahead and put it on whatever you want to. You could do a basic strung necklace, having the kind of 4mm gemstones be done right on the stringing wire. Like I said before, I'm going to grab some 2mm cording and literally run it down the center. The center of this one will accommodate a 2mm and smaller. If you do want to do a larger piece of cording, you can simply add a row to your beads. So how we started with 3 rows and then we joined together to do our 4th row, you can simply do 5 rows, which is going to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and feed my leather through. If you have trouble feeding it through, you can kind of move the seed beads and roll them down. That's going to help push that leather through. The other thing you can do is actually glue the end or take a little bit of a needle and kind of stick it into the leather. And then you'll be able to pull the needle through the project as you feed the leather through. Once you have the leather through and feeding it through, then you can go ahead and add the clasp enclosure onto the end of the leather. So just showing it on this darker piece of leather, because the other piece, the natural looking piece that I had, was not long enough to actually complete my necklace. I'm going to go ahead and just do slip knots like I said. So I'm going to do the necklace big enough, and this is just a darker Greek brown leather cording. I'm going to cut the leather big enough that I can do the slip knots and that it will fit over my head when having 2 knots. To do a slip knot, you are going to, after putting your piece on your cording, you're going to take one side of your cording here and tie it to the other side. So I have my long piece of cording. I'm taking the left side here and I'm going to tie it onto the right. To do so, I want to tie just a simple knot, just like if you were adding thread, and I'm going to tie it onto the opposite side and do a nice knot. From there, go to the other side. You can see that there. And I'm going to do a slip knot as well. So I'm going to take the other piece of leather, do the same thing, the other side, and tie a knot. And then tying that knot, it's going to allow it to move along the thread ends. And there you'll have kind of your necklace that you can move it up and down along the ends. If you want to, you can trim that kind of natural look that we have going. But it's a nice design to help you kind of learn that right angle weave in an opposite kind of fashion, making that little loop to it. Again, if you need any of the materials to do this Dorado necklace, you can go back to the beginning of the video, and there I listed off the products that we're using, the tiger's eye beads and the brown amazonite matted 4mm, and just those seed beads and some thread. You can also go to below the video to the little date stamp that says when the video was produced. Check that out there. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel. You'll get regular updates when we do new videos, new product updates, and kind of what's going on in the beading world updates. Also, feel free to stay connected with me on PotomacBeads.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. Also ask to become a member of our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. It's a wonderful interactive group that people show their lovely creations, can help you make decisions on colors and patterns, help you find designs, and really it's just an inspirational place for you to look and check out what everybody's doing. As always, everybody, thank you so much and have fun creating this Dorado necklace.